The champagne glass slipped from my trembling fingers, crystal shattering against the marble floor of Julian's apartment. But I couldn't hear it break over the sound of my own sister moaning his name from the bedroom. God, Julian, she has no idea we're together. Rosaline's voice. My maid of honor. My best friend. My sister. My legs gave out. I gripped the doorframe, wedding dress shopping bags scattered around my feet like broken dreams. The key Julian gave me, the key that was supposed to symbolize trust, felt like molten metal in my palm. 2 more weeks until her birthday, Julian's voice drifted through the crack in the door. Then we'll have everything. The gallery, the trust fund, everything she's worked for. The air disappeared from my lungs. Everything turned white-hot, then ice-cold. My vision blurred as I pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. I can't believe she trusts me so completely, Rosaline laughed, that same laugh we'd shared over wedding cake tastings just yesterday. When she finds out we've been together for 8 months, and that I've been copying her business contacts, her passwords, her entire life. 8 months. 8 months while she helped me plan my wedding. 8 months while she worked beside me at the gallery. 8 months while she held my hand and called me her best friend. The sound of kissing made bile rise in my throat. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. But in that moment of absolute devastation, something darker began to take root in my chest. Something cold and calculating that whispered, they have no idea what they've just awakened. My name is Alexia Montenegro, and this is the story of how my own family destroyed me, and how I made them pay for every single lie. 2 months before my world collapsed, I was living what I thought was a fairy tale. Every morning started the same way. Julian would text me "Good morning, beautiful" before I even opened my eyes. I'd smile into my pillow, still amazed that someone like him is successful, charming, devastatingly handsome, had chosen someone like me. The girl who'd always been second best to her golden sister. Rosaline would already be at the Montenegro Gallery by the time I arrived, coffee waiting on my desk, her bright smile lighting up the space we'd built together. Ready to conquer the art world today, sis, she'd say, and I'd feel that familiar warmth of belonging somewhere. She was everything I'd never been: effortlessly beautiful, naturally charismatic, the type of person who walked into rooms and made them brighter. Growing up, she was mom's favorite, dad's princess, everyone's darling. I was the responsible one, the hard worker, the one who earned love through achievement rather than simply existing. But here, in my gallery, surrounded by paintings that spoke when words failed, I'd finally found my place. And somehow, miraculously, I'd found Julian too. "You're glowing," Rosaline would tease, watching me text him during lunch breaks. "It's disgusting how happy you two are." Sundays were sacred. Julian, Rosaline, and I would meet at Café Luna for brunch, planning wedding details over mimosas and laughter. Julian would hold my hand under the table while Rosaline showed us flower arrangements on her phone. "What about these roses?" she'd ask, eyes sparkling with excitement that seemed so genuine. "Perfect," Julian would say, but he'd be looking at me, not the flowers. "Everything's going to be perfect." In those moments, I felt complete. The insecure girl who'd spent her childhood competing for scraps of attention was gone, replaced by someone worthy of love. Someone who belonged. Friday nights were movie nights with Rosaline. We'd curl up on my couch with wine and popcorn, talking about everything and nothing. She'd braid my hair like when we were kids, and for those precious hours, I forgot all about the years when she got the attention, the praise, the easy love that I had to fight for. "You know what I love most about you," she said one evening, fingers gentle in my hair. "You never gave up on us. Even when I was bratty growing up, even when mom and dad made everything about me, you never stopped being my big sister." I'd almost cried. "We're a team for life, right?" "Always," she'd whispered, and I believed her with my whole heart. The trust fund looming on my 28th birthday felt like validation, proof that Grandma Elena saw my worth, that all those years of working twice as hard for half the recognition had meant something. $2 million wasn't just money, it was security, freedom, the foundation Julian and I needed to build our dreams. "We'll expand the gallery," I'd tell him, eyes bright with possibility. "Maybe open a second location." He'd kiss my forehead. "Whatever makes you happy makes me happy." But late at night, alone in my apartment, sometimes the old fears would creep back. Was I enough? Would Julian still want me if I lost everything tomorrow? Would Rosaline still love me if I wasn't useful? I'd shake off those thoughts, telling myself I was being paranoid. This was real. This was mine. This was the life I'd earned. I had no idea how fragile it all was, or how easily the people I trusted most could turn my fairy tale into a nightmare. The first crack in my perfect world was so small I almost missed it. Tuesday evening, 6:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was rushing home from a client meeting that ended early, excited to surprise Julian with dinner. My heels clicked against the marble lobby floor as I fumbled for my keys, already planning the evening ahead. But when I opened my apartment door, I found Rosaline on my couch, phone pressed to her ear, voice barely above a whisper. "No, she doesn't suspect anything. Just stick to the plan." Her back was to me, dark hair falling like a curtain around her face. There was something different about her posture, tense, secretive. I'd never seen her like this. The floorboard creaked under my weight. She spun around so fast her phone nearly flew from her hands, eyes wide with what looked like panic. "Oh. Lexi. You're early. Who was that?" I asked, dropping my purse on the counter. My voice sounded casual, but my heart had started beating faster. "Just." She glanced at her phone, then back at me, that radiant smile I knew so well sliding into place. "Just a friend. About a surprise for you." But the smile didn't reach her eyes. And she was gripping her phone too tightly, knuckles white against the black case. "A surprise?" I forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow in the suddenly thick air between us. "For the wedding," she said quickly. Too quickly. "You know how I love planning surprises." She stood up, smoothing down her dress with nervous hands. "I should go. Early morning tomorrow." After she left, I stood in my living room, staring at the couch where she'd been sitting. The throw pillow still held the indent of her body, but something felt wrong. The air still hummed with whatever secret she'd been whispering into that phone. I told myself I was being paranoid. Rosaline was planning something sweet for the wedding, probably coordinating with Julian about flowers or music or the honeymoon. That's what sisters do. But as I made dinner for one that night, her words echoed in my mind, "She doesn't suspect anything." What wasn't I supposed to suspect? Thursday night. The night my entire existence shattered into a million irreparable pieces. I'd decided to surprise Julian with his favorite meal, homemade lasagna and that expensive wine he loved. My key turned silently in his lock, a smile already spreading across my face as I imagined his expression when he saw me. The apartment was dimly lit, candles flickering from the living room. How romantic. Maybe he was planning to surprise me too. Then I heard it. Rosaline's laugh, throaty and intimate, drifting from his bedroom like poison in the air. My shopping bags hit the floor. "She has no idea, does she?" My sister's voice, breathless and satisfied. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My legs turned to stone as Julian's reply cut through my chest like a blade. 2 more weeks until her birthday, and then we'll have everything. The gallery, the trust fund, everything she's worked for. The walls started spinning. This couldn't be happening. Not Julian. Not Rosaline. Not together. Not planning to. I can't believe she trusts me so completely. Rosaline's voice again, closer now. I pressed myself against the hallway wall, heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. "When she finds out we've been together for 8 months. 8 months. 8 months. The number carved itself into my brain like a brand. 8 months of lies. 8 months while she helped me pick out wedding dresses. 8 months while she held my hand and called herself my maid of honor. 8 months while I poured my heart out to her about how much I loved him. And that I've been copying her business contacts, her passwords, her entire life. My knees buckled. I slid down the wall, designer dress catching on the rough paint. Every memory turned toxic in an instant. Every late night at the gallery when Rosaline had access to my computer. Every time she'd borrowed my phone. Every password I'd shared, every secret I'd trusted her with. The sound of kissing made bile rise in my throat. Wet, hungry sounds that told me this wasn't their first time. Wasn't even close to their first time. God, I love watching her plan this wedding, Rosaline whispered between kisses. She's so excited about our future together. She has no idea her future is with no one. Julian laughed, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but never like this. Never cruel. The trust fund will set us up perfectly. We can disappear to Europe, start fresh. She'll never find us. What about the gallery? Rosaline asked. We'll sell it. She'll be too heartbroken to fight us in court. Poor Alexia, abandoned at the altar. So tragic. They laughed together. Laughed about destroying me. My chest felt like it was caving in. 26 years of loving my sister, of believing she loved me back. 3 years of planning a life with Julian, of believing I'd finally found my person. All of it fake. All of it calculated. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming. The betrayal wasn't just about Julian or the money. It was about every moment we'd shared, every secret whispered between sisters, every time she'd held me when I cried about feeling invisible. She'd been studying me, learning my weaknesses, cataloging my vulnerabilities. I was her project. Her target. Her victim. But as I sat there on Julian's floor, drowning in the ashes of my life, something else began to grow in the hollow space where my heart used to be. Something cold and sharp and infinitely more dangerous than love. If they thought I was going to disappear quietly, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I didn't confront them that night. I couldn't. Instead, I gathered my shopping bags with hands that wouldn't stop shaking and walked out of Julian's apartment like a ghost. The hallway felt endless, each step echoing in my ears like gunshots. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished steel, hollow eyes, bloodless lips, a woman I didn't recognize. The drive home was a blur of red lights and tears I couldn't stop. Every song on the radio sounded like mockery. Every couple I passed on the street felt like a personal attack. By the time I reached my apartment, I was sobbing so hard I could barely see the keyhole. 3 days. 3 days I called in sick to the gallery, telling my assistant I had the flu. 3 days of lying in bed, staring at the ceiling while my phone buzzed with concerned messages from the 2 people who'd destroyed me. Julian, hey babe, haven't heard from you today. Everything okay? Rosaline, Lexi, you're worrying me. I brought soup but you're not answering the door. Julian, I miss you. Feel better soon. Love you. Love. The word felt like acid on my skin. I couldn't eat. Couldn't shower. Couldn't do anything but replay every moment, searching for signs I'd missed. How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? How many wedding planning sessions had they endured while secretly planning my destruction? The worst part was the shame. How could I have been so blind? So trusting? So pathetically, desperately naive? Everyone always said Rosaline was the smart one, the beautiful one, the special one. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was exactly as stupid as they thought. On the second day, Julian showed up with chicken soup and concerned eyes. You look terrible, babe, he said, stroking my unwashed hair while I lay there like a corpse. Don't worry, everything's going to be perfect soon. Perfect. For them. Rosaline came too, perching on the edge of my bed with those same loving eyes that had fooled me for 26 years. "We're here for you, Lexi. Always. You know that, right?" I stared at her beautiful face as my face, but better, like I was the rough draft and she was the masterpiece. "I know," I whispered, because what else could I say? They sat there, one on each side of my bed, playing the roles of loving fiancé and devoted sister while my soul bled out onto the sheets. Julian rubbed my back. Rosaline held my hand. Both of them counting down the days until my birthday, until they could take everything and disappear. That night, after they left, I stood in my shower and screamed until my throat was raw. The sound echoed off the tiles, primal and broken, the cry of something dying. But when I stepped out of that shower, something else was being born. I caught myself in the bathroom mirror, really looked at myself for the first time in days. My eyes were red-rimmed but alert. My face was thinner but sharper. I looked like someone who'd been through hell. Someone who'd survived it. The old Alexia would have confronted them, crying and begging for explanations. The old Alexia would have made a scene, demanded answers, probably forgiven them in the end because that's what good sisters do. But the old Alexia was dead, murdered by the two people who claimed to love her most. The woman staring back at me from that mirror was someone new. Someone who understood that nice girls don't win, they get buried. And I refused to be buried. On the fourth morning, I got up. Not the broken, shuffling movements of the past 3 days, but a deliberate rising. I showered until my skin turned pink. Put on my sharpest black dress, the one that made me look powerful, untouchable. Applied makeup like war paint, each stroke erasing the victim they'd created. In the mirror, I practiced my smile. The trusting, loving expression they expected from stupid, naive Alexia. It came easier than I thought it would. At the gallery, my assistant rushed over with worried eyes. "Alexia, you look better," I finished smoothly. "Much better. Thank you for covering." The first call I made was to Marcus Blackwood, a private investigator I'd met at an art auction last year. His voice was gravelly and discreet when I explained what I needed. "Evidence of an affair," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Financial records. Communication history. Everything." "How fast do you need it?" 48 hours. He whistled low. "That'll cost extra. Money isn't an issue." The second call was to my lawyer, Catherine Walsh. We'd handled the gallery's contracts together for years, but this was different. Personal. Deadly. "I need to discuss inheritance protection," I said carefully. "And business security measures." "Of course. Can you come in this afternoon?" Quietly. "Perfect." Between calls, I researched Julian's social media, his employment history, his financial background. Amazing how much you could learn about someone when you stopped looking through rose-colored glasses. The charming entrepreneur I'd fallen for had debts I'd never known about. Credit cards maxed out. A pattern of jumping between jobs when things got difficult. He needed my trust fund more than he'd ever needed me. By lunch, Marcus had sent preliminary photos. Julian and Rosaline at a hotel. Holding hands in a restaurant across town. Kissing in his car outside her apartment. Each image was a knife twist, but also ammunition. That afternoon, Catherine showed me how to bulletproof my assets. New accounts they couldn't access. Legal documents they couldn't touch. Contingency plans for every possible betrayal. "Are you in danger?" she asked, studying my face with sharp lawyer eyes. "Not the kind you're thinking," I replied. "But yes." When I got home, they were both there waiting. Rosaline had used her key, was cooking dinner in my kitchen like she belonged there. Julian sat at my counter, looking concerned and loving. "There's our girl," he said, kissing my cheek. "Feeling better?" "Much," I said, and meant it. For For the first time in days, I felt alive. Powerful. In control. We were so worried, Rosaline said, stirring pasta sauce with those graceful hands that had touched him, betrayed me, stolen from me. You scared us. I'm sorry, I said, watching her face carefully. I guess I just needed some time to think about the future. Julian's eyes sharpened slightly. Oh. What about the future? I smiled, the same adoring smile I'd given him for 3 years. Just how perfect everything's going to be after my birthday. They exchanged a glance so quick I almost missed it. Almost. 5 days, Rosaline said softly. Are you excited? You have no idea, I replied, and it was the first completely honest thing I'd said to them since learning the truth. That night, alone in my bed, I stared at the ceiling and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, pure, crystalline focus. They thought they were hunting me, circling a wounded animal. They had no idea they were walking straight into my trap. My birthday was in 3 days when I made my first move. I have an announcement to make, I told them over dinner at our usual Sunday brunch spot. Julian's hand squeezed mine under the table. Rosaline leaned forward with sparkling eyes, probably thinking this was it, the moment I'd hand them everything. I want to have a family dinner tomorrow night. Everyone. Mom, Dad, Grandma Elena, Uncle Roberto. I have something important to share. Rosaline's smile flickered for just a second. What kind of announcement? A surprise, I said, echoing her words from that phone call. You know how I love planning surprises. Julian shifted in his seat. Is this about after your birthday? Something like that. I took a sip of mimosa, savoring the way uncertainty crept into their eyes. I want everyone I love there to witness it. That afternoon, I made the calls. Each family member, each friend, carefully chosen. Can you come for dinner tomorrow? I have something important to share with everyone. Of course, Mija, Dad said. Is this about the wedding? Among other things. Meanwhile, Marcus had delivered everything. Bank records showing Julian's crushing debt. Photos spanning 8 months of their affair. Text messages between them that made my stomach turn but my resolve strengthen. Audio recordings from the restaurant where they'd planned my destruction, thinking they were safe in a crowded room. Catherine had prepared the legal documents. Clean, surgical, devastating. But as I organized everything into neat manila folders, doubt crept in like poison. Was I becoming like them? Calculating, manipulative, cold? The old Alexia would have confronted them with tears and forgiveness. This new version of me was orchestrating their public humiliation with the precision of a surgeon. Julian called that evening, voice tight with something I'd never heard before: fear. Hey babe, about tomorrow night, are you sure you want such a big crowd? Maybe we could keep it intimate? Why? I asked innocently. Are you nervous about something? No, just, you've been different since you were sick. Distant. Have I? I let confusion color my voice. I thought I was being more loving than ever. Silence on his end. Then, you are. You're perfect. Always perfect. But I wasn't perfect anymore. The old Alexia had been perfect, trusting, giving, naive. This version of me was something else entirely. Something that could smile at her sister's face while planning her downfall. Something that could kiss her fiancé goodnight while counting the hours until his destruction. Rosaline texted me later, so excited for tomorrow. What should I wear? Something memorable, I replied. You'll want to look your best. At midnight, I sat in my gallery office, surrounded by evidence of their betrayal. The photos were spread across my desk like tarot cards, each one telling the story of my demolition. In the silence, I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and sure. Tomorrow night, I would destroy them the same way they'd tried to destroy me, with careful planning, perfect timing, and the people they loved watching. But unlike them, I wouldn't be hiding in shadows. I'd do it in the light, with witnesses, making sure everyone knew exactly who they really were. The old Alexia would have called this cruel. The new Alexia called it justice. The dining room at Café Luna fell silent as I stood up, wine glass in hand. Mom, Dad, Grandma Elena, Uncle Roberto, and 3 close family friends all looked at me expectantly. Julian sat to my right, his grip on my other hand slightly too tight. Rosaline beamed from across the table, radiant in the red dress I'd suggested. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, voice steady as steel. "I wanted you here because family should witness truth." I reached into my purse and pulled out the first photograph. Julian and Rosaline kissing outside the Meridian Hotel, 2 weeks ago. The collective gasp was like music. "Julian," I said conversationally, sliding the photo across the table. "Would you like to explain this to my father?" His face went white. "Alexia, I can. Or maybe this one." Another photo. Rosaline's hands in Julian's hair, his mouth on her neck. "Rosaline, you look beautiful here." "Very, sisterly." Rosaline shot to her feet. "This is insane. Those could be anyone." "You're right." I pulled out my phone. "Let's add audio." Julian's voice filled the room, crystal clear. 2 more weeks until her birthday, and then we'll have everything. The gallery, the trust fund, everything she's worked for. Dad's chair scraped against the floor as he stood. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Grandma Elena's face had turned to stone. 8 months, I continued calmly. "That's how long you've been planning this. 8 months of lies while I planned my wedding. While I trusted you with my business. While I loved you." "Alexia, please," Julian started. "Please what?" I cut him off. "Please forgive you for stealing from me? Please understand why you wanted to abandon me at the altar with nothing?" Rosaline's mask finally slipped. "You think you're so perfect. You think everyone loves you more than me." "I don't think it," I said quietly. "I know it. And now they know why." I placed the engagement ring on the table with a soft clink. "Julian, you're fired from my life. Rosaline, you're fired from the gallery. Security is changing the locks as we speak." Uncle Roberto was on his feet now, rage darkening his face as he stared at Julian. "You piece of..." "Roberto, sit," I said firmly. "They're not worth it." Rosaline was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You can't do this. The gallery is half mine." "Actually, no." I pulled out legal documents. "According to these papers, which you'll receive tomorrow, you own nothing. You never did. It was always mine." Julian tried one last desperate play. "The money won't make you happy, Alexia. We could have been happy?" I laughed, and the sound was sharp as broken glass. "You mean I could have been useful? Until you took everything and disappeared." The silence that followed was deafening. Grandma Elena finally spoke, her voice carrying decades of authority. "Get out. Both of you. Now." As they stumbled toward the door, broken and exposed, Rosaline turned back one final time. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know," I replied. "I'm counting on it." The door closed behind them with a soft click, sealing their fate and opening mine. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours, word had spread through our entire social circle like wildfire. The art world is smaller than people think, and scandal travels faster than light. Julian lost his job by Wednesday. Turns out Uncle Roberto sat on the board of his company and had never mentioned the family connection. Funny how quickly rising star becomes liability when your crimes go public. Rosaline couldn't find work anywhere in the city. Every gallery, every museum, every art dealer had heard the story. The beautiful sister who'd betrayed her own family for money and a man. In an industry built on trust and reputation, she was radioactive. I watched it all unfold from the safety of my rebuilt fortress, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks: peace. They tried to salvage their relationship, of course. Love built on shared greed rarely survives when the money disappears. Julian moved back in with his parents at 32, drowning in debt and shame. Rosaline found a studio apartment across town, working retail to pay rent, a far cry from the European escape they'd planned with my inheritance. I thought betrayal would break me, I told my therapist during our first session. Instead, it rebuilt me into someone stronger. Dr. Chin nodded thoughtfully. How do you feel about the person you've become? I considered this carefully. Different. Harder, maybe. But also, free. I spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it freely. Now I know the difference between real love and performance. The gallery thrived without Rosaline's poison. My assistant, Maria, stepped up beautifully, bringing fresh energy and genuine loyalty. Artists who'd always been polite but distant began inviting me to their studios, respecting the strength they'd witnessed. Alessandro came into my life like sunrise after a storm. He was browsing paintings on a Thursday afternoon, drawn to a piece about resilience and rebirth. When he asked about the artist's inspiration, I found myself telling him my story, not the public version, but the real one. You chose to rise instead of sink, he said simply. That takes courage. He didn't know about the trust fund. Didn't care about my money or connections. Just saw me, the real me, scarred but surviving. 3 months later, I was different in ways I couldn't have imagined. Stronger, yes, but also softer in the right places. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value myself beyond what I could give others, to recognize love that came without conditions attached. Late at night, when the gallery was quiet and the city hummed outside my windows, I'd sometimes think about the old Alexia. The girl who'd given everything for scraps of affection, who believed that being needed was the same as being loved. I mourned her sometimes. She'd been innocent, hopeful, trusting. But she'd also been weak, blind, willing to accept crumbs when she deserved feasts. The woman I'd become wasn't perfect. She was cautious where she'd once been naive, calculating where she'd once been impulsive. But she was mine, entirely, authentically mine, in a way I'd never been before. Betrayal had taught me the most valuable lesson of my life: the only person you can truly count on is yourself. And sometimes, that's more than enough. 6 months later, I'm standing in that same marble hallway outside Julian's apartment building. But this time, I'm not the broken woman who discovered her world was built on lies. This time, I'm here by choice, collecting the last of my things from a storage unit he'd forgotten to mention, things that legally belong to me now. The champagne glass that shattered that night has been replaced. The marble floor gleams under different lighting. Everything looks the same, but I see it through different eyes. Eyes that no longer search for validation in other people's faces. Eyes that recognize my own worth without needing it reflected back to me. Julian appears in the lobby, looking older, defeated. The confident man who'd planned to steal my life now works part-time at his father's hardware store. He stops when he sees me, something like shame flickering across his features. Alexia, he says quietly. Julian, I reply, my voice steady as granite. We stand there for a moment, two people who'd once planned a future that was built on quicksand. The silence stretches between us, heavy with everything that can never be unsaid. I'm sorry, he whispers finally. I study his face, really look at him for the first time in months. The apology might even be genuine. But it doesn't matter anymore. His regret can't rebuild the trust he shattered, just like my forgiveness can't erase the woman I've become. I know you are, I say simply. Then I walk past him toward the exit, my heels clicking against the same marble that once witnessed my devastation. At the door, I pause and turn back. He's still standing there, watching me leave. Julian, I call out, my voice carrying clearly through the lobby. The best revenge isn't destroying someone's life. It's building a better one without them. The door closes behind me with a soft click, and I step into the sunlight, finally free. My name is Alexia Montenegro, and this is how betrayal taught me that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing you ever didn't know you needed.